We call the meeting to order. We thank you for attending this evening's meeting. This is Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening, October the 9th, 2018. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Council Member Lee Demas, if he would, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation for Council. Please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for this night, and thank you for all the members of our staff that are here tonight, Lord, and we think specifically for those that are put in harm's way, especially with a hurricane that's quickly approaching off the coast down in Florida, and we know a lot of first responders and police and fire and public services, and there'll be so many folks that'll be impacted and having to move around, Lord, and we ask that you bless them specifically, and we know the remnants of Florence, folks are still dealing with devastation in the lower part of the state and the tragedy with the city of Florence, and there's just so many things that are happening in the world today, Lord, and it gives us hope and faith knowing that you're there and you're present and we can be your hands and your feet, and you can mobilize us to move and to act on behalf of you. Be with us tonight, Lord. Be with this city. Continue to lead and guide and direct us as leaders and help us to do what's right and what's good in your eyes. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Try to cover them all.
Ms. Duncan, do we have anybody up here in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
Council, with that, we'll move to the minutes of the council meeting from September 11th. I'll entertain a motion they be received.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, as is our pleasure from time to time, we have a group of folks, and indeed a large group of folks, that are here this evening for a recognition. This is the resolution that we have honoring and recognizing City of Greer employees who have reached a milestone in terms of their employment with the city. And we want to recognize them this evening with a certificate of appreciation and a day off, which we will do in just a minute. And I'll ask Mr. Driggers, if he will, to join me as we officially recognize these people. But I do want to read the resolution, and this is a resolution recognizing and commending City of Greer employees. And it says, whereas the City of Greer endeavors to recognize and reward its dedicated and faithful employees, and whereas Alliston Blanchard has served in the fire department for 5 years, Billy Campbell has served in the Building and Development Standards Department for 5 years, Macaulay Hanna has served in the fire department for 5 years, Drew Pittman has served in the fire department for 5 years, Jonathan Saunders has served in the police department for 5 years, Edgar Atkins has served in the Public Services Department for 10 years, J.B. Carson has served in Public Services for 10 years, Lisa Elliott has served in the administration for 10 years, Jeffrey Hermick has served in the police department for 10 years, Andrew Holloman has served in the fire department for 10 years, Michael Paulson has served in the recreation department for 10 years, Ray Schaefer has served in the Public Services Department for 10 years, Laura Swain has served in the Public Services Department for 10 years, Sally Wise has served in the Recreation Department for 10 years, Warren Douglas has served in the Fire Department for 15 years, Taylor Graham has served in the Fire Department for 15 years, Claire O'Neill has served in the Recreation Department for 15 years, Ashley Wright has served in the Police Department for 15 years, and Kevin Holtzclaw has served in the Fire Department for 25 years. Whereas these employees have served in a distinguished and professional manner, now be it therefore resolved that the City of Greer and the City Council and a duly assembled meeting wishes to officially recognize and commend these employees for the dedicated and distinguished service for which they have performed, and be it further resolved that the City of Greer hereby rewards these dedicated employees with a certificate of appreciation and administrative day off with pay, approved this 9th day of October 2018. Join me in giving these folks a round of applause. We call your name, if you will please come up and receive your certificate. Alliston Blanchard. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You want to stand over here for a minute? That'd be great. We'll give everybody a round of applause. Billy Campbell. Thank you, sir. Golly Hannah. Thank you, Rich. Drew Pittman. Jonathan Saunders. Edgar Atkins. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. J.B. Carson. Lisa Elliott. She said keeps track of this. Thank you. Michael Paulson. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Morris Lane. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Warren Douglas. Taylor Graham. Claire O'Neill. Kevin Holtzclaw. Give these folks a round of applause. Headed to the room. Here goes the crowd. That'd be cruel of you. With that, we'll move to departmental reports. We have the Building and Development Standards Activity Report this evening, and Mr. Steve Grant, our city engineer, will bring us that report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your time tonight to let us review our monthly report. I will note that this is in PowerPoint format. It may look just slightly different than your monthly reports you get in PDF format, but all the information is the same. So, I just want to make that note. As you know, our department's in 3 divisions, planning, zoning, engineering, stormwater, and building inspection and code enforcement. So that's kind of the way our report is written. So we'll move into planning and zoning first. The upper left, you see the Planning Commission is listed with 2 cases in August, and this is our August report, by the way. So there were 2 cases in August, and you see details of each of those cases. The Board of Zoning Appeals had 1 case in August, and the details of that case. And the BAR, or the Board of Architectural Review, had a case, 1 case, and the details of that. And then the Planning Advisory Committee, or better known as PAC, had 3 cases and details of each one of those. And zoning permits for the month of August included 26 residential reviews, 11 commercial projects, and 7 signs. And the blue graph there shows the total cases for the month of August for each of the boards and commissions, and then the total cases for year-to-date for boards and commissions. And then here we have some graphical depictions of planning and zoning activity. The one on the left is zoning permits collected for August of 2018, and each of the colored dots represent a different type of permit. And the one on the right is a heat map showing the clustering or the concentration of the zoning activity for the month. And then the next on the left is the zoning permits collected year-to-date 2018. And again, the colored dots indicate which type of zoning permit applies. And the map on the right is again a heat cluster showing the concentration of the activity for the year-to-date. And then that's the end of planning and zoning. Moving over to engineering and stormwater, the upper left, the city engineer ongoing engineering projects is the projects that are active, that the city engineer is active in during the month. You see the name of the project and the status, and then below that is subdivision and development projects, which involves meetings or plan reviews that come up during the month for projects that are just starting out, being planned, designed, or even under construction. So active projects are listed there, starting with Wilshire Terrace, and goes on down to Project Satellite. And those are projects that came up during the month, and then the activity for each one of those is listed. And then over on the other side is other. That's activity that doesn't fall under an engineering project or an active development project. It's other miscellaneous activities that come up during the month, such as encroachment permit reviews or PAC meetings or training or things of that nature. Continuing in the stormwater, this is a stormwater plan review activity. It's a color-coded page. The tan is pre-submittal meetings. These are meetings that are held before a project gets submitted to kind of go over the particulars of each project. The columns are the type of development, the project name, and the number of lots or units that are applicable to that project. If it's a residential, such as Branchwood, it shows 42 lots or 42 units, depending if it's subdivision or townhouses. Plan reviews, the blue section is the number of actual plan reviews for the month. Again, either commercial or residential, the project name, the type of review, whether it's either the initial review or a follow-up review, and then also the lots and the units. Pre-construction meetings is the meeting we have before the grading permit is actually issued. The plan review is complete, and in order to get a grading permit, they have to have this meeting, so there was 4 during the month of August. And then the goal is project closeouts. As new projects get started, sometimes they get closed out as well. There were 3 projects that closed out in August. Those are listed. And in the red area is a summary of stormwater plan activity for the year through August. And as you can see, there's 33 projects submitted, 78 total plan reviews, and 25 pre-construction meetings. And then the blue section at the bottom is just a historical comparison. If you look at 2018 year-to-date, we had 33 projects submitted. In the prior 5 years before that, you can kind of see the other years and projects that were submitted in those years. So it's just a comparison, kind of see where we are during the year. Stormwater inspections, this is active sites. The upper left, the chart, the blue columns are 2016 active sites, the gold columns are 2017 and the gray is 2018. So you can see we've been steadily trending up with active sites for the last couple of years in the 60 range as of this month. And then on the right there is a listing of each of those active sites, the name of the site. And continuing with the inspections, our stormwater inspector also inspects all the building permits. Each individual building permit that comes in, we have to check and make sure that the building contractor is complying with the building plans that were submitted usually a year or two before. So, you know, they don't build the house until 1 to 2 years after the roads and the lots are graded, so we have to double check that to make sure they're still complying with the original design plan. So they were again, the colored bar charts show the monthly activity for those. And in the right, the tab shows citizen complaints that come up during the month, and then details about those, the issue, the date, the address, and if it was resolved, and the completion date. And then there's also a section for asphalt activities. We had none during August, but those usually consist of proof rolls or paving activity that Anthony would be out inspecting those as well. Moving over to building inspections and code enforcement, this is a list of commercial plan reviews that come in for the month of August. I think there were about 20, and you see the name of the project and the address. And then we have some charts that indicate the activity in this format. The first one being commercial construction for the month is approximately $14 million. And then right below that you see 2018 year-to-date, the value of commercial construction, and then the previous 3 years. And then at the bottom you can see that same information for this year in a tabular format and a graphical format. And then the next chart being housing starts, we had 32 for the month of August and 375 year-to-date, and then you can see again the other years comparatively. And then a bar chart and a graphical chart depicting the monthly changes. Total residential construction for the month, $7 million in August, and again 2018 year-to-date, and then the prior years. Similar information with the bar chart and the graph, month to month. Total construction costs, which that includes commercial construction, residential, mechanical construction, and miscellaneous construction, which includes demolition permits, sprinklers, and sign permits. That's where these totals come from. $32 million for the month of August. 2018, you see $246 million plus for the year-to-date, and then comparatively the other 3 years below that, and then again a chart and a graph showing that information for this year. Number of total permits issued for the month, 380. And then for 2018, 3,232 for the year-to-date, comparatively to 2017, 16, and 15. And then again, the same information in the bar and the chart format. Mechanical permits for the month, 7,807,000 and change. Again, 2018 year-to-date, and then the other comparative years. Total inspections for the month, 2,688. 20,794 year-to-date, and then you can see the other comparative years as well. Miscellaneous permits, that was the ones I mentioned earlier. That includes demolition, sprinklers, and sign permits, things of that nature. $2 million for the month, 19 for the year-to-date, and then the other comparative years as well. Code enforcement inspections for the month, 395, and then year-to-date, 3,202, and then the other years comparatively as well for code enforcement. That's all three divisions. That's the total of the report. I'd be glad to try to entertain any questions. Or I guess, is this just right information, too much, not enough?
Just right. You've been working.
There's a lot of information. As you know, as you well know, there's a lot of activity in our city. It's a good problem to have, and hopefully this paints a monthly picture of what's going on and how it compares with other months.
Mr. Grant, an interesting trend in residential construction, it looks like from a historical perspective that there is a sort of a dip, historical dip, August, September, and October, followed by kind of an upward trend in November and December, except for one little outlier there. Seems to me like, just from a construction standpoint, that people would be trying to get into the dry as they go into winter, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be a case. But I guess an uptick in those last couple of months to get something started for either tax reasons or just building reasons. Any explanation on that? I mean, it's pretty validated there through the last 3 or 4 years.
Not really, other than, I guess, coming out into the spring, the weather improves and everybody's got new budget years. I suppose if everything's going well, they cram it all in early in the year. Then I guess in the middle of the summer they're building, and then, like you said, it picks up a little. I guess it picks up a little bit towards the end of the year as they're spending the rest of that budget, I guess.
Thank you. Others?
Mr. Grant, I just wanted to thank you publicly for all your hard work on the Mount Vernon drainage challenges that we had up there with that the infill development. And I know that the project built everything up to code, that it was all the water that was moving downstream that was causing a lot of issues. And thank you for all your hard work on that. And I think the neighborhood's really pleased with the results. And I know there were a lot of people that were part of that. So.
Right, they were. Some of them are in this room.
But thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If you're in the room and you helped to coordinate that effort, I know Skipper, your guys helped with that project too, and thank you for that.
Thank you,
because
sir.
I think they're very pleased. This is one of the rare instances where someone's called me and said, "Your guys did a great job," and you make us look good, and we appreciate that.
Glad to hear it. We try hard.
Ditto. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Mr. Grant. Seifert will bring us our financial activity report this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm pleased to bring to you the financial summary report for the month ended of August 2018. Looking at the general fund revenue, we have revenue of $1,110,000 with expenditures of $3,336,000. That amount at August 31st, 2018 is 3% under budget. Referencing the dashboards, we have a combined negative variance of $197,000 and a carrying cash balance of $14,610,000. Moving to the hospitality fund, we have revenue that is 1% over budget of $385,000 with expenditures of $23,000. And we have a carrying cash balance in the hospitality fund of $1,533,000. And finally, in the stormwater fund, that is a cyclical revenue that comes in with the taxes. So right now, we're not receiving much money, but the revenue there in the stormwater fund is $9,200 with expenditures of $75,100. And the carrying cash balance in the stormwater fund is just shy of $1.1 million. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Council. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Greer, the administrator's report, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Several items to make you aware of this evening. One of those is that we have been preparing for several months now for the distribution of our citizen survey. As you're aware, we did this about 3 years ago, exactly 3 years ago, set some benchmarks for us in identifying levels of service that was anticipated, expected from our citizens in the community. Much of our strategic plan centers around the results of those citizen surveys. Later this week, we will be mailing out a number of notifications. As you are aware, this is a random survey, a statistical random survey. It will be distributed within our community. I think the first notification goes out later this week. After that notification, we actually submit the surveys, do a couple of follow-ups with those as they're coming in. As that information is gathered and we start to tabulate that is certainly information that we will be using as part of your annual strategic planning retreat after the 1st of 2019 when we gather for that. So we'll start pulling together, tabulating those results. But you may get questions from constituents that will ask you about receiving the survey. It is indeed from us. And we do encourage our residents to complete that survey and submit it back to us. If you have any specific questions on that, Mike Sell has been coordinating that effort for us this year again, and has been working closely with the representatives at National Citizen Survey so that we can get, again, an accurate result for the results of that tabulation. Gov Deals, we do Gov Deals periodically where we will sell surplus property of the city. Very happy to report that we completed that in the latter part of September, reporting that $128,230.60 was deposited to the city from the sale of that surplus material. A couple of large items, usually vehicles will bring some of the higher dollars in that, but a very, very good surplus equipment sale for us, again to the tune of $128,230.60. Wanted to report that to you. Tammy handles coordinating that with each of our departments as we conduct those, and did an excellent job of getting that advertised and people in. I think most folks have now come in to retrieve most of their items, so that has gone really well for us. Wanted to make sure that you were aware, I shared some information earlier this week that the final Walk with Your Elected Official will be taking place here November the 10th. We gather and walk at 10 a.m., gather at 9:45. The walk begins at 10 a.m. on Saturday, November the 10th. We'll gather here around the water feature outside. So if your schedule would allow, we would love to have a strong participation for our final event. Remember that Bowling Springs, City of Spartanburg, Cowpens, Woodruff, Hacklet, Lyman, and Landrum all participate, and us here in the city of Greer and Inman. And so if your schedule will allow, we would love to have you come out that date. We'll send a reminder on that as well, but Justin Miller, as he's helped coordinate that through the year, I've pledged to him that we're going to do the best we can to make this our biggest and best walk of the year. So we do indeed hope that you can join us on that date. We're always pleased to report achievements to our respective departments. I won't read it in its entirety, but I do want to make you aware that our police department is periodically, they receive a report card for their risk management services. So through our South Carolina Municipal Insurance and Risk Financing Fund, what we call SMRF, they come in and they do an assessment of operations, policies, procedures. There are 11 categories that you're graded for that survey. I'm proud to report that our Greer Police Department scored an 11 out of 11 for 100% achievement in that report card. Very, very proud of the folks there. There's always room for improvement. There's always things that we can do to make sure that we are on the cutting edge of providing law enforcement services in our community. But this is a great demonstration that the framework is in place for us in that department. So congratulations to Chief Hamby and all the members of the police department in achieving that 100% score. You received also a week or so ago from me, a couple of you replied back to me asking me what this was about. You received a communication about Know Before training. I wanted to give you a little additional information. You should have received a subsequent communication from Jim Ridgell on that as well. But we know that as a local government, we are susceptible to cyber attacks within our computer systems. We've done a number of testing recently to see how often our employees and users within our system will actually allow a phishing email to be able to capture and embed within our system, potentially install malware within our system. One of the greatest risks we have is ransomware. We certainly know those examples that have been very noticeable, very well communicated nationwide, but I can assure you that there are tens of thousands of those that are not well communicated. They are happening out there every single day, and local government is particularly susceptible to those types of vulnerabilities. We are proactively trying to make sure that all of our users within our system are completely familiar with what these suspicious emails could look like, making sure that we understand how they work, and doing everything that we can to prevent those entering into our system. So anyone that has access to our computer systems, we are requiring that each of those users participate. Our employees are required. We are strongly requesting that you will as well participate in that because you do receive and send emails through our servers. And you are as susceptible to that as any of our other employees are. So we're asking that all of our employees participate in this program, including our elected officials. If you have any questions about that, I did it about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I think it took me about 40 minutes to do the training. There are 3 sessions within that training. If you've already completed it, Jim knows who has and who hasn't. I don't know that, but if you have any questions, please let us know, and we'll do everything that we can to make sure you have the information you need. But again, we're protecting. Our intent is to protect that system that we operate and the data that we protect on behalf of the businesses and the residents of our community. Several folks have asked us about leaf pickup. The leaf pickup brochure will be going out here the end of October. Leaf season begins the 1st of November, and so we'll have that flyer out to you as quickly as it's produced, but again, scheduled to be distributed here by the end of the month. A couple of things I wanted to make you aware on our streetscape project. We are moving forward. The project has been advertised for bid. That occurred earlier. We have a mandatory pre-construction bid conference that will be taking place on October the 15th, next week. As of today, we've had 5 businesses, 5 construction companies indicate interest in our project. And what that simply means is that they've downloaded all the documents, the plans, the proposal in its entirety, and they are aware of that mandatory pre-bid conference. We would anticipate others will receive that information here over the next week as well. So we're very, very pleased with the number of folks that we're starting to get interest in that project. We will certainly answer any questions that any of those general contractors would have as they look through the project, and we are soliciting and submitting bids to be received on November the 8th. There will be some additional information that I'll share with you in executive session this evening, but it is specific to the participation agreement concerning how that project would ultimately be, how the bids would be let for that project. We also want to make you aware that we have completed our transition to ADP payroll. You will notice that as well. We've been running a dual system for a couple of months now in what we call our GTAL system, our time and attendance system. We made the full conversion over our last payroll. It ran successful. We had a 99.7% success rate with that. We had one employee issue that we needed to make corrections to, but we were able to immediately identify what happened in that payroll. And that correction has been made, and we're ready to, again, move forward with that. We had an opportunity at our safety breakfast last week to review those new documents with our employees, how those statements will look, and also encouraging them to verify the accuracy of the information as it transferred from the old system to the new system. But again, we are completely converted at this point, and that transition ran very, very smoothly. Congratulations to David Seifert and his team, and particularly to Nicole Peddington in our payroll department for making that such a smooth transition. A lot of time, a lot of hard work to make that happen. As we did indicate, we met last Friday for our safety recognition program, had a wonderful turnout of our employees. Ms. Everett, certainly glad that you were able to join us for that event. We really appreciate you being there with us. We know that we had some schedule conflicts for some other folks, but a wonderful event. We were again able to share with our employees what it means relative to their safe work practices, how valuable that is to us in our workers' compensation program, and we were able to share some of those rewards back with our employees on Friday. Glad that that was able to happen. A couple of items that are happening relative to your calendars. Our farmers market continues on Saturdays. Every Saturday here at City Park. It runs through November 17th. As part of that program, this Saturday is the Artisan Makers Market. It will be in conjunction with the farmers market, so we're expecting a really good turnout here at the park on Saturday, this Saturday. Our food truck rollout will be happening here on the grounds of City Park on October the 19th, so a week out. You'll see the food trucks here on the lawn again, and then we'll roll around the next week for our Halloween hoopla, which is here at City Park in downtown. That's happening Saturday, October the 27th from 4 until 8 p.m. here at City Park. And then we're going to be participating with our partners over at 10 at the Top. We will be participating in a community bus tour for all of the upstate regions, so the 10-county upstate region represented through 10 at the Top. We'll be invited for a bus tour that will feature Simpsonville, Malden, and Greer. And we're looking forward to hosting our community partners from across the upstate as we highlight some of our industrial projects and development projects that we've had some success with over the last couple of years. Looking forward to that. And last but not least, I had the pleasure of making a presentation to the city. So Mayor Danner, I would like to ask if you could step forward for just a moment as I make a presentation on behalf of the International City and County Management Association. We've been very fortunate over the last several years to receive certificates of achievement. This is in relation to how we are able to report to our community, through our strategic plan, our reporting systems, our benchmarking systems. We've been participating in this program for a number of years. So on behalf of Mark Odd, our Executive Director, David Johnstone, President, and my role as a member of the Board of Directors for the International City and County Management Association, it's my pleasure to present the ICMA Certificate of Distinction, one of the highest awards that is bestowed to a community. This award is presented to Greer, South Carolina, for accomplishing the standards established by the International City and County Management Association in the application of performance data and local government management, including training, verification, public reporting, planning, and decision-making, networking, and accountability. Presented at the 104th ICMA Annual Conference in Baltimore, Maryland on the 26th of September 2018. Receiving for us at that program was Mike Sill, who directs our program. It is my pleasure to present this to the city and to you, Mayor Danner, for all our participation. Thank you very much.
Just a quick note, thank you for making this presentation, and to Mike tip of the hat, sir. You spent a lot of time on this. It's one of those things that we do. It's a quality of life measurement tool, and it's helped us tremendously through the years. I know a lot of work goes into it. I thank you as well, council, and certainly you share in this as well, too, for making the funding and the other things that go along with this available, and so we appreciate it. We'll see you.
Thank you very much. Mayor and council, that concludes my report. Very lengthy this evening, since we did not meet but once last month, but certainly available to answer any questions you may have relative to any of the departmental reports or any of the items I covered under the administrator's report.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, if I could, I'd like 1 minute to brag on employees, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Take all the time you want.
Tonight, we've honored people for their service. We have talked about departments that have a lot to do, and they do a tremendous job. In my everyday work, I travel all through the upstate, and I interact a lot with staff from other municipalities. And I can say by far that our folks, they are just overachievers all the way around. I mean, you don't, from building and zoning and planning all the way to public works, and then when police and fire, all the folks that I have dealings with, and I'm always comparing them in the back of my mind with our folks, and we're always right there at the top. I mean, and some of the things I run into that I don't ever hear come out of our staff is, oh, we're so busy, we don't have time. I don't know, and hopefully we'll never do this, but I've run into this where staff has tried to enforce ordinances that don't exist. So, great job.
Thank you. I'll communicate to our entire team. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. We've got an opening on for appointment boards. I'm so overcome by your speech there. Under appointments to boards and commissions, we have an opening on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Now that I've got that out there. Allison Ringer, who has served in District 1, has resigned her term, and I believe we have a new person to appoint to that position. Councilman Arrowwood?
Yes, sir. At your desk, you should have a biographical sketch of Emily Chesmeliclu. I believe that's the proper pronunciation. We're fortunate to have Emily to volunteer her time and say she would be willing to serve. She lives in that Trade Street area where we have a lot of activity going on, where the neighbors are really involved. And she has agreed to serve, and not only did she agree to serve, but there's a lot of educational classes that she'll have to attend throughout her tenure. So I'd like to make the recommendation that we fill this vacancy with Emily Chesmeliclu.
We'll consider that a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments in that regard?
I have seen anybody that has a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of South Carolina is A1.
I was going to mention that.
That's so hard
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Alba, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council will move to items of old business, the first of which is the second and final reading of ordinance number... You were just there to...
Just in case you have any questions about what's coming.
Okay, all right, that's...
Pronunciation of Chestnut.
We were going to ask you to say it again, but he got through it twice. So. Under old items of business, we have the second and final reading of ordinance number 33-2018. This ordinance is approving a project agreement with Tribe 513 Properties and East Poinsett LLC and the Greer Poinsett Properties LLC Downtown Development, authorizing the acquisition and disposition of real property, authorizing the expenditure of funds, and authorizing the execution and delivery of additional documentation and other related matters. Council, this has come for first reading, and at that point in time, you asked that we hold this over until we were able to gather some additional information. I know that Mr. Randolph is with us this evening, and you have some information in that
This is
regard?
actually the development agreement.
Yeah.
This is second reading of the ordinance for the
excuse
development
me.
agreement.
Okay.
The other issue is relative
The
to
development
the
agreement.
resolution for the abandoned buildings property.
Yes, so I got a little ahead of myself. This is the ordinance for the development agreement. Do I hear a motion to receive?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Just as a matter of information, we have continued to work with the members of Tribe 513 and their representatives and legal counsel. Both their legal counsel and our legal counsel has been involved in that process. The development agreement that we have at this point, it has been approved by our legal counsel and through my office. As we've reviewed that, the management of Tribe 513 has also approved that and are waiting on final approval from their legal counsel for that. Once we have that, we would be in a position to execute the agreement, but would not be in a position to do that unless the ordinance is approved by council. So no changes to any of the information that we have presented previously. We're just looking for that final sign-off from legal counsel.
Any additional information needed, council, before we make a decision?
Does this ordinance, I know what it was originally for, but there was an issue with parking and access and land swaps and things like that. Is that included in this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All that's been resolved and is included.
Okay.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Now, council, we'll take up what I was trying to describe to you a minute ago, which is the first and final reading of resolution number 21-2018. This is a resolution certifying certain real property in the city of Greer as an abandoned building site. We do have Mr. Jeff Randolph with us this evening to help with some clarification of information that council asked for, and any additional information from staff in that regard.
No, sir. Council requested that we obtain a certified affidavit relative to that resolution. You will note on your agenda that previously there were two resolutions, one involving the old, what we call the old D&D property, which is where Grace Church plans to locate their facility, and the other was where the doctor's offices are being located in the main showroom area of the furniture company. We have been notified that that portion of the property has withdrawn its request for certification by the city for that, and so the only one that is on your agenda is relative to the request from Grace Church. And again, Mr. Randolph is here and certainly can answer any questions that you may have specific to his application for abandoned building status and that portion of the property.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Randolph, I believe you've got information to present to council this evening, sir?
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Jeff Randolph. I am, I guess you want me to tell me where I live. I always have to. I live at 165 Darnell Lane in Tryon, North Carolina. Don't ask me why I'm living up there. I'm on staff at Grace Church. I'm over the business operations. Let me go off course for just a minute. All the information that you've heard about your staff, I wear multiple hats. I'm Grace Church, I also have a development company, and I develop in multiple states, multiple municipalities. Grace Church is in 3 different counties, multiple municipalities, and I can tell you that your staff is excellent and represents you well. That's has nothing to do with what I'm up here for, but you do have some great people. Thank you for letting me come tonight. Grace Church is requesting council resolution certifying abandoned building status of those 3 buildings owned by Grace Church, not all 6 buildings, the other 3 buildings owned by Tribe. As you might recall, Grace Church, through a wholly owned subsidiary, for-profit company, Greer Poinsett Properties, purchased 3 buildings located on Poinsett Street. The buildings were purchased for $1.4 million in April 2018. We are under design to renovate those 3 buildings, which total 16,725 square feet, which is an important number, and an approximate cost of $2 million. We expect to be under construction in November and to occupy sometime in early summer. Last week we had attendance of 426 people, so downtown, so we're looking forward to having more people downtown. We'll renovate the buildings in accordance with city standards as well as historical standards, because one of the buildings is historic. We've already been approved by the Board of Architectural Review. Let me first define which buildings we are discussing. If I can, I'm going to pass this out. So there's 6 buildings that were originally discussed. I think they all get called the Mutual Home Store, but we call our 3 buildings. We own the 3 buildings, which were the old D&D Ford building, and then the 2 adjacent buildings. One was a jewelry store, and then the other building was attached to Mutual Home. So these are the 3 buildings that we own. The furthest 3 buildings away from where we are today. The 3 buildings that are closest to you today are owned by Tribe Parkside. That's where they're putting their offices. That's where Mutual Home Store had their business. We are not talking about those buildings tonight. Okay? So those are the buildings that are being discussed. Let me give you criteria or a definition of an abandoned building according to the state statute. At least 66% vacant for the past 5 years. May not be a single-family resident, and it's a building listed, or it could be a building listed on the National Register for Historic Places. We believe we meet those stated criteria. We have provided to you an affidavit from the previous owner. I met with that previous owner and walked him through all 6 buildings and clarified what was abandoned, what was not, where was Mutual Home Store, where they had furniture stored, where people came into their buildings, where they bought furniture, and where they did not. And he would not have signed that affidavit because he clearly realizes that he's got some liability in the matter. Grace Church buildings total 16,725 square feet. To qualify, 66% of the buildings would have to be vacant, or 11,038 square feet. The D&D Ford building is 11,100 square feet by itself. So even not counting the other 2 buildings, we meet the 65% criteria. The D&D Ford building has been abandoned for more than 5 years, particularly the front building. The rear building was occasionally used for minor storage. They'd have some stuff come in, they would go right back out. But according to the owner, it was not used. People didn't go back there. Customers didn't go back there. The second building was a former jewelry store. I've been in Greer a long time. I don't remember a jewelry store being in that business or in that building. Third building was not an active portion of Mutual Home Store, but even if considered occupied, we still meet the 66% criteria because of the D&D Ford building. I did some pretty good coloring this afternoon. Again, these are the 3 buildings that we have. I think it's hard when you look at all 6 of those buildings, what is what. I'm available to answering questions and appreciate your favorable consideration.
I assume our legal counsel has said grace over this affidavit?
Yes, sir.
Council floor is open for questions.
Well, you know my questions, and I'm going to take Mr. Griffin's, Mr. Hayne Griffin's word. He's an honorable man, and he would not falsify such a document. I think it's a little disingenuous to say that that part of D&D didn't generate income because I consider my warehouse an income-generating part of my business. That's all I'm going to say.
Others? Comments?
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Looks like y'all are doing a really good job over there.
Yeah, it's starting to look real good.
Yeah, it is starting to look that way.
Good to ride down there and see that change.
They've got their thumb on me as of today. It's like, well, what does early summer mean, Jeff? It's like, could be May, could be August, you know. So we want to get in there as fast as possible. We know that once we move in, our attendance usually will double. So, wow.
Very good.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate the presentation this evening. Council, this is a resolution. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and second. Floor is open for discussion. Additional questions? Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Based on the affidavit, yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we'll move to items of new business, the first of which is the bid summary from the police department regarding the police department range. Captain Presley, I hope you will pass along to the chief that even though you scored 11 out of 11 for 100%, that the administrator noted there's always room for improvement.
I noticed that. You don't want you to get
We
too
didn't get credit for
comfortable.
the new policy that we had added, so maybe next time
We'll get some extra credit.
The pressure's not on. I just wanted you to note that.
No, I understand. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. As part of our range renovation project, we gathered 3 bids for the reconstruction of the berms that surround the range. The front berm that sits behind the targets will be raised to a height of 20 feet. The side berms will be raised to a height of 8 feet, and those berms will run the complete length of the shooting range itself. Sloan Construction came in with the lowest bid of $108,000. The middle bid was $118,000 plus, and the highest bid came in at $148,000. We are recommending the bid provided by Sloan Construction. Forfeiture funds will be used to pay for this project, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Where's Hickory Grove?
Pardon?
Where's Hickory Grove, South
Right
Carolina?
next to Hickory Grove, I suspect.
Yeah, I would imagine. Other than that, I'm not quite sure.
It's on the outskirts.
Oh, yeah.
What size are the berms now? I know you said you're raising them to, what size are they at?
Well, roughly the front berm is, after settling, and I don't know what it was a couple of years ago, it's roughly 6-7 feet, maybe 8 feet tops. So, and the side berms dwindle down quickly from there, and they do not run the length. We want to take those berms the length of the range itself, which is 50 yards out.
Captain, how much of that range would be, I guess the appropriate word would be portable if we found another location? Are the targets in the backing piece of that, are they movable, or are they?
The targets are, yes, sir.
Okay. What other, do we have anything else out there at this point?
No, sir. Just the dirt that we hope to move in there, the concrete walkways, if you will, are there. Nothing else is there.
So this work will insulate anyone walking around from any stray bullets.
That is by standard that we have found. Statute doesn't govern the construction of outside shooting ranges. We have an obligation to provide an environment that contains the rounds within the range, obviously. The standards that we found were set by the NRA. The Department of Natural Resources uses those standards to construct outside shooting ranges. Those were the only standards that we found. 20 feet behind the berm behind the targets is pretty significant. As you notice from the price, that's an awful lot of dirt that we've got to bring in.
Is that the depth of the berm?
The 20 feet is the height, and I am not the engineer, Steve obviously is, but we went, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, we went on up, so every foot up we go, we have to go at least a foot out. So, a 2-to-1 slope, yes sir, not a 1-to-1. Thank you. So, we have a tremendous base there to build up that 20 feet. It has to be compacted by the tracked equipment that will be bringing that in, and then it's going to be sown with low grass so that it'll hold the erosion in, and we don't have to maintain it after that.
How long does it stay before it does start to?
Well, with the compaction, I can't answer that question. That's Steve may be able to answer that. With the compaction that the equipment will do, and then the sowing of the low grass, we hope that it doesn't at all.
Captain, how quickly had you hoped to move on this particular project? I mean, I know there's some building that's going on right beside the range as we speak, but I mean, this is something that you would like to accomplish
Within 90 days of the approval.
So we could still meet your time frame if this matter was deferred until the next meeting, but that'd be...
Well, the 90 days is upon approval, so after the construction company gets the approval, then they can have it completed within 90 days, so we're pending any kind of approval from council.
So all 3 of these are available for the work in the fairly near future. I mean, we're not knocking somebody out if we hold this over for one meeting.
I wouldn't think so. Availability of dirt is some of the difference in the pricing there. Obviously, some had better access to it and don't have to transfer it or transport it quite as far.
Kevin, do you recall in the bid documents how long the bids are good for? What's the length that the bids are
I
valid?
would have to look through.
For the date of submission.
I would have to look through that.
Our requirements in the package are 90 days. I can't remember, did this go through the full process?
It went through the full seal bid process.
Our
No, okay. From date of submission.
So we've got a window of opportunity in terms of when this was lit to stay within that standard.
Good, here, sir.
Chief, Kevin, we hadn't had the conversation yet. I'd like to ask council if we could hold this matter over until the next meeting, until I've had an opportunity to give some new or additional information to you or the chief in regards to this and the administrator. I've got no problem with this particular work in regards to the costs of this, but a potential alternative. So if we could hold this over, I'd like to discuss that with you all if we could, please.
Very good.
I'd like to I'll ask if somebody will make that in the form of a motion that we hold this over till the next meeting.
I'll make a motion, we hold this bid summary over till the next meeting.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
With you.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you, sir. In other items of new business, we have the city resurfacing list for 2019. Mr. Grant, you're up again, sir.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Appreciate your time tonight to consider these paving lists for Spartanburg and the Greenville County sides of the city. I would note that these lists are compiled from our PCI scores and also visual inspections of each street. We'll start with the Spartanburg County side. You may want to note that the key columns there, the street name, beginning and ending points, length and width of the road, probable funding year, and estimated costs. I'd also like to note that in the upper left on Spartanburg, the Clearview Circle, Morgan Street, Barnett Street, and Gilliam Road were all on last year's list. At the bottom, they've moved to the top. Wheel Street and then from Coldbrook down are all new to the list this year. Would note that the tan column is the PCI rating score we got from the consultant that did evaluated our streets a couple of years ago. And also noting that Spartanburg County does perform their own evaluation. In addition to the scores we have, they do an evaluation. If their score is 50 or less, they will fund paving with their CTC dollars. In 2018, our paving budget for Spartanburg was approximately $140,000. That was split evenly between Spartanburg CTC and the city, and we got about 2,500 feet or a half a mile or so paved. This year, our budget is $240,000. That was be split between CTC as well, $120,000 for them and $120,000 for the city. Of that $120,000 for the city, approximately $90,000 would come from road fee funds from the CTC. That's our road fee funds from the city of Greer. So that brings us to a total of $240,000. We would expect about 4,000 to 4,500 linear feet, or almost a mile, 8 to 9/10 of a mile. And you can see those streets there listed from top to bottom. Any questions about this?
I think you did a good job, because I got a lot of streets. We ain't no I think you did a good job.
Everybody's happy. That's great. Anything else on Spartanburg? Okay, we'll move over to Greenville. Similar layout and everything. I would note that on the Greenville side, that from Arlington Avenue down to Fuller Street were all on last year's list at the bottom, and they've now moved up to the top. And then from Gallivan Street to the bottom are now all new to the list this year. Below that, in the gray area, you see the full depth patching. There's a section of Westmoreland Road near the bridge, about 70 square yards. It's starting to look pretty rough, so I'm hoping to get some full depth patching done there. And crack sealing and some subdivisions. I've ridden through some subdivisions. I've had calls from residents throughout the past year about cracking in subdivisions, and I visually inspected each one, and sure enough, they are correct. There's some cracking, and it's similar to what we've seen in Brushy Meadows this year. So I've added each of these subdivisions: Riverside Chase, Shelburne Farms, Country Meadows, and one street, Foxfield Way. That's about 5 lane miles of crack sealing in Greenville County. I would note in the green highlighted area is Spartanburg County. Spartanburg County does not have capability to do crack sealing under their contract, but I talked to the manager over the Greenville contract, and he thinks we can let the Greenville contractor work in Spartanburg County if we contract with them directly for that. So we'll get the same unit price as the Greenville work. They'll just come over the line and do one subdivision, Bent Creek, which also has some significant cracking in there as well. So we'll contract with them directly, at least that's the plan. The 2018 budget for Greenville is about $403,000. There was a match of $153,000 each between the city and the Greenville GLDTC, Greenville Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee. Say that 5 times fast. This year, the paving budget for 2019, or for next year, will be $551,298. $175,649 from the GLDTC. The city will be matching that. That totals out to about $351,000. And then we're adding it due to the new budget that we recently passed with additional paving dollars. We're going to add $200,000 to that, $351, for a total of $551,000 $551,298. That should get us about 2.2 miles approximately for next year. And I'll entertain any questions.
I have a question about something sort of related. I noticed your in the area of Arlington and North Avenue. And you may have noticed, and probably the mayor has noticed too, at the corner of North and Church Street, the sidewalk that went around what used to be the old junior high school has some erosion underneath the outside. And I've been a little bit concerned that we may run into some problems with that. Have you looked at that?
Mr. Burns is aware of that.
Is he?
He
Okay.
may want to answer that. We looked at that a little while back about a solution, so, yeah.
So you got a plan?
But you're aware. He's aware of it.
We looked at it, Steve and I went all the way back to all, and it's, sidewalks up in Akron.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think engineers can figure out exactly what it is.
I was thinking you could make a form and just pour more concrete underneath there, you know. Maybe dig it out just a little bit more and reinforce it with concrete.
We're aware of it, and we will continue to.
It needs an interim, that's what really needs now.
We need to
It's been like that for years.
It has, yeah. That's tough stuff.
We'll make sure that the engineer, Skipper, have another look at it and see if there's something we can figure out we can do with our sidewalk work. And we looked at that, I guess when we did the work out there on Davenport and then on Miller, so, yeah.
Mr. Grant, have we made any progress on Blue Ridge Plantation?
I mean, for paving? No, sir, not paving. I'm not really sure what the financial, I know they were looking into bankruptcies and other.
We're trying to call several bonds in the area. The bond company has challenged our call on the bonds, so we're working through that process. It is in foreclosure. So, yeah. A development that goes to foreclosure becomes a very difficult problem.
Speaking of West Arlington, that work would be in the program for next spring. Would that be approximately when that work would be done?
Yes, sir.
We wouldn't try to accomplish that in this fall, would we?
No, sir, they'll bid all this out in January, and they'll start, their contract, runs all of Greenville County, Simpsonville, Malden, all those areas. They don't direct where they start first or where they end. The contractor kind of picks where he goes, but they'll start paving in March and finish in November, so we'll be in there somewhere. It's usually July.
Here, CPW has some rather extensive work to be done on Arlington. They've got it marked and cut. Several other things look like they're going to be replacing the sewer line down in the middle of Arlington. So, maybe a good time.
Yeah, I noticed those marks when I was out there. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. All right. Others?
We always notify CPW of our paving list so that there's coordination for repairs and replacement of infrastructure prior to the repavement.
Maybe not always, but yes.
What we typically run in is if we are resurfacing a street that they were not making those repairs to, the vibration of putting in the new road surface is not unusual, that it can break the water line especially.
It's cast iron, yeah. Cast iron lines.
Yeah. And that's typically where you see an unplanned repair then has to be made because the line was in good shape prior to the resurfacing, and the resurfacing actually vibrated the line loose. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like from Miller down towards Ballinger, it's, looks like they're getting ready to do something right down the middle of the road there. Others? Council, the list has been presented by the engineer, comes with recommendation, actions necessary. I'll entertain a motion to receive the list.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further conversation or discussion in that regard? Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Council, this is the first and final reading of Resolution Number 22-2018. This is a resolution to authorize the Municipal Association of South Carolina to act as claimant agency for the collection of debt on behalf of the City of Greer in accordance with the Set-Off Debt Collection Act. Mr. Mr. Seifert is here to present information in that regard.
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution and the following ordinance comes to us as a request from the Municipal Association to bring the city of Greer, as well as all the cities across the state that participate in the set-off debt program, into compliance with the statute that has had some changes to it. So they have forwarded this resolution to us. It authorizes the Municipal Association to act as our agent in collecting these debts, and also authorizes the administrator to sign the agreement with the Municipal Association.
This comes as a recommendation from staff. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions of Mr. Seifert? Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert. Mayor Danner.
Yes. Got the first reading of ordinance number 34-2018. This is an ordinance relating to the recovery of collection costs as a part of delinquent debts collected pursuant to the Set-Off Debt Collection Act. Mr. Seifert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated in the title, the Set-Off Debt Collection Act does allow for the reimbursement collection of costs associated with the program. The Municipal Association charges a fee of $25, and this also authorizes each city that participates to also include a fee of up to $25. Both of these fees are included in the ordinance, and those are amounts that we do charge and collect to reimburse our costs associated with the program.
Comes to us with a recommendation from staff. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any questions of Mr. Seifert? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you, sir. First reading of ordinance number 35-2018. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by William B. McAbee located at 214 Center Street by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of R7.5 for said property. Ms. McCormick?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Ordinance 35, 2018, again, is an annexation and zoning request for property at 214 Center Street. The parcel is 0.436 acres and is proposed for future residential development with an R7.5 single-family residential zoning classification. I can call your attention to your PowerPoint presentation, just showing you the parcel in question. It looks like it's right on the other side of the county line, which it is. So this is just in Spartanburg County, so all of that property surrounding that parcel is unzoned except for the property to the west, which is currently in the city of Greer. This is what the property looks like now. It's a kudzu forest, and they plan to develop at least 2 single-family residential homes in this location. So they have to subdivide this, which is the selection of R7.5, which would give them the ability to make lots of 7,500 square feet. That's all I have at this time. Mr. Mayor.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or a representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Let the record indicate no one indicated so. Entertain a motion to receive.
So moved. Second.
Motion to say the floor is open for discussion. Ms. McCormick, is there a portion of this lot that's in the flood zone?
That's an excellent question, and that was something that we strongly considered before looking at this as an annexation. We certainly don't want to actively annex property that's fully in a flood zone, as it could create a liable situation. However, there is no flood zone active on this property. There is a creek with about a 32-inch culvert that runs through this property, so development may be a challenge and a great expense, but it is not in a flood zone. No form of flood zone A, E, or X is on this property.
That's all the way on the back of that parcel, right?
It's right at the road. You can, if you walk this, if you look kind of where that depression is, right there, there's a large pipe that runs right there and kind of
Yeah, it's come over that road before.
I would anticipate they would have to split both sides of that with development, but it's not in a flood zone. Flood zone's about 1/8 of a mile from this location, but that is an active creek.
And since this is in the county, I'm I'm guessing that it was never developed because they just had challenges with getting a septic system to work in that.
I would anticipate that is certainly the case.
Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. First reading of ordinance number 36-2018. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by John W. Beeson, Jr., located on Ansel School Road by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of R10 for said property. Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Mayor Danner. The parcel for annexation is a single parcel of 33.78 acres. I'll draw your attention to the PowerPoint. You can see it outlined in question, and then there's a small strip that goes along the rear of an adjacent parcel that is currently part of this parcel. You can see that here. It's 10 foot wide, 750 foot in length, which was recently combined with this property. They have currently started grading, developing in the county under permits issued by Greenville County, but quickly determined the need for a tie-on to the CPW sewer, and as such have requested annexation into the city. This has been a challenging project, but we are excited to finally have it come into fruition. Although this is not germane to the request because it's simply an R10, I did want to show you what their site development plan is. This will not come before the Planning Commission as a preliminary plat, simply as a final plat. It has already been platted in the county. We are simply annexing the partially developed subdivision, 108 lots, again at 33.78 acres, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
What is on that parcel, top right up there?
Here, that's a single-family residence. You can, let's see if I go back a little bit.
Oh, Chandler's house? Gotcha. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. When I looked at it, it was splits up there. Okay, that was the top
It's
of
the
the
first
piece.
home when you make the curve on Ansel School, that
Gotcha.
large estate-size home. Then there are several other lots as you go down.
And they made it contiguous, you're saying, with that little strip at the bottom?
We first approached this by looking at joining it with this neighborhood and taking a 10-foot strip out of the back of this parcel. It's completely in the flood zone except for that little jog there. So undevelopable land, and it is a 10-foot by 750-foot strip. It's about 0.05 tenths of an acre. And they have finalized the acquisition of that property, and it is platted all as one parcel at this point.
By show of hands, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Record indicate no one said so. Entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second. Second. Floor is open for any further discussion. Questions? Comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you. Council, in executive session this evening, we have two matters to take up. I'll entertain a motion regarding the first matter.
You want me to do it? Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter pertaining to the administration department as allowed by state statute 30-4-70A1.
Have a motion to hear a second? Second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter pertaining to participation agreement with the Greenville Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee as allowed by state statute 30-4-70A2.
Motion to hear a second? Second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. We stand in executive session. Council, in executive session, we've considered two matters. One, a personnel matter, which involved executive session for a personnel matter pertaining to the administration department. We'll take no action in that regard tonight. The second was a contractual matter. Move into executive session to discuss a contractual matter pertaining to the participation agreement with the Greenville Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee. In that regard, we will take action. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, do we have a matter to discuss in regards to contractual matter regarding the Greenville Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that will allow the mayor and the city administrator to execute a participation agreement with the Greenville Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee for construction of the downtown streetscape project.
That comes as a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Comments or questions? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we stand adjourned.